This video was supposed to be my review of the new Miku movie, but after reading The Guardian's official critique, I knew I had to talk about that instead. For context, on the 31st of August, Miku's 18th birthday, Colourful Stage, the movie, a Miku Who Can't Sing, was finally released in UK cinemas for a couple of days. So of course, me and my friend got our super saver tickets and we went to see it in our local theatre, in a screening that was about half full but had a very high concentration of Miku merchandise. Afterwards, I went looking through other people's thoughts online, seeing what I agreed and disagreed with, eventually coming across The Guardian's review. Now, this is a big, well-established publication in the UK, it's over 200 years old, and it's probably one of the biggest sites to have reviewed the film. It's not supposed to be some throwaway clickbait site. I would imagine it likes to hold itself to higher standards, which makes it all the more disappointing that their review of the film was little more than a mix of buzzwords, tired jokes, and a refusal to honestly engage with the material presented. Also, before we begin, obviously don't harass or dox the movie reviewer, as it's just awful, immature behaviour and would reflect really badly on the community. If you do have some thoughts, please keep it to the comment section or Reddit threads. I kind of went back and forth on actually making this video because I don't want to send hate to anyone, but I think critiquing a professional paid review in good faith is totally fair game. So we start off with what is probably everybody's biggest problem with the film: how much context you need to understand it. The review says this by saying, even by the standards of franchise anime that caters to the faithful and drops newcomers in blind, this is particularly incomprehensible, and that the franchise's 5 main pop groups are not even named as they decide to put on a show. As for myself, I do have mixed feelings. I do partially agree with the sentiment. I think it was a missed opportunity to introduce new people to it, and I think the way the pacing was and the way it focused so much on like slice of life stuff, there was definitely room to have a little explanation of what the sekais are. Plus, I think the sekais itself kind of did warrant an explanation. Like, I kind of was surprised we didn't at least have like a little explanation of what the untitled stuff was. And again, it wasn't a super serious film. I kind of would have loved like a cheesy like sort of sequence where we got all their names put up and maybe like a tiny little like 30-second intro. But even then I can understand the choice not to do that, because even taking like 15 seconds for each characters would have added a lot of time, and I think they were struggling as like the concept of the film to switch between all these characters and make sure everyone gets enough screen time. So I understand the idea that we are making a movie for a set of people who already know this film. We're just gonna go in from the top and just assume that they know everything. And I don't know, I don't think it's especially bad to do that. Like, it's not bad to have a film that caters to a certain group. It doesn't make it a bad film just because you aren't able to understand it. But at the same time, I don't think it was that confusing. Like, I've played Project Sekai for a couple of years, but I haven't really picked it up in a few months. I'm not like super up to date on what all the characters are doing, or even much of the lore outside of my favourites, which are Mizuki and Ina. I know, very basic. Like, if you got me to pick out the pairs of siblings beforehand, I'm not sure I would have got it correct. Like, I'm a Vocaloid fan first and foremost. Plus, my friend who went with me is not a massive Vocaloid fan, isn't a Project Sekai fan, and kind of only really knows it through me basically forcibly getting her to sit down and listen to the music and telling them everything about Miku. So before we went in, I gave them a quick rundown of what the sekais are, and also the groups. Like, as I went in, I was saying, remember, there's childhood friends, there's street style, there's the idol group, there's the theatre kids, and there's the emo Discord users, and they had like actually no trouble at all comprehending it and just picking up on the fact that, oh, these characters are siblings, these 4 are obviously a group. I don't know, I think one thing that really irritates me with a lot of movie reviews, and even just media review in general, is when they fail to acknowledge who the target audience is and kind of complain about the fact that it doesn't appeal to every demographic sometimes. Like with this film, it's very clearly made as a treat for Project Sekai fans. It's not even made, I would say, necessarily for Vocaloid fans. I mean, I guess there is some kind of overlap. Like, I went as a Vocaloid fan, but at the end of the day, I knew I was seeing the Project Sekai movie, I knew I was seeing Colourful Stage, the movie, and I was not upset to go in and see that it mainly focused on the Project Sekai characters. Very few people watching this will be watching this film who haven't interacted with Vocaloid or Project Sekai in some way, or are not with someone who can explain to them what is going on. Like, it's not the kind of film that you go and see just sporadically, spur of the moment. Like, it's a limited showing for fans of this franchise, and for the main complaint of the article to be that it's incomprehensible to people who aren't fans is just kind of frustrating, because it isn't made for people who aren't fans. It's a treat for us, as a thank you for playing the game and interacting with the characters and stuff. And I do understand that this person has to watch the film and write the review and get paid. But again, like, I've read other reviews by other people where they did engage with it and they did acknowledge the fact that, yeah, this film wasn't made for me, but I can see that it will be enjoyed by people who like it. There's also a lot of one-liners in the review that kind of grate on me a little bit. Like, it says that it ascribes Manhattan Project's importance to writing syrupy J-pop, which honestly is a questionable metaphor to use. Like, if I'd written that, I would have come back to it and thought, maybe I wouldn't use that one. I don't know, I doesn't feel like the best thing to compare it to. And it also just dismisses the significance of J-pop and what Vocaloid can mean to fans by comparing it to something so absurdly overblown. Like, this whole article feels full of these kind of witty little jabs instead of actually, like, talking about the film in, like, a more earnest, genuine way. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of this style of writing. Plus, I feel like this criticism is negated by the fact that the impact the music is shown to have is relatively minor. Like, at the end of the film, all the people who are inspired by this music are inspired in, like, fairly small ways just to continue doing what they're doing. It gives them a bit of creative spark, a bit of drive, but it's not something that changes their lives overnight, you know? So, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't ascribe ridiculous importance, apart from in the sense of, like, keeping Miku alive, which is obviously a metaphor for the fact that Miku only exists because fans use her. It also says it's like the Matrix if Neo had huffed a nitrous oxide canister before having every edition of Pop Idol downloaded into his cranium. And honestly, I can't lie, this one made me laugh a bit, but I feel like it's supposed to be some kind of scathing burn, but in all honesty, that's not a terrible description of what this film is about, which I find kind of funny. I feel like it's made to be a cutting insult, but it's not wrong. That kind of is what Project Sekai is. Like, I want to use that myself when trying to describe that to people. Another thing that slightly irritated me is it talks about, like, the Windows Sekai as apparently issuing from a Sekai created by the emo angst of everyone about to give up on their creative ambitions. And this sort of, like, emo angst sentiment is so overused when it comes to expressing any kind of negative emotion, especially in fictional media. It just feels so dismissive of what the film was going for. I really hate it when any kind of issue is just labeled as something emo. I feel like I see it more and more, because, like, the film doesn't revel in misery, it treats lost ambition and burnout with some real sincerity, showing how upsetting it can be to lose your spark. Plus, I find it especially annoying considering how much Vocaloid music engages with mental health issues and other struggles that people go through, which are then often just seen as, like, oh, emo and edgy, rather than someone's true, authentic experience. Like, a huge part of Miku's legacy is being a voice for topics that more mainstream pop often avoids: depression, isolation, gender identity, queerness, and burnout. And I think this is slightly ironic considering that the reviewer also seemed to take issue with how, like, upbeat and syrupy and nice the main songs that are featured in the film that the groups perform are. It's, like, kind of complaining about both sides, about being too emo and being too, like, upbeat. And it's like, I don't know. Pick a side. Is it too sad? Is it too joyous? Vocaloid is a completely fan-driven movement. Most of the songs are written and produced by people just stuck in their bedrooms rather than polished by record labels. So naturally, this music reflects real struggles in a very raw and honest way. These songs aren't niche and hidden away either. They're like cornerstones of the music. Like Aishite, Rolling Girl, Young Girl A are all like staples that will be recommended to any new Vocaloid fan. And I think the film captured that spirit really well, not as like an in-depth mental health study or anything like that, but as an explanation of what Miku means to people. The whole like Miku dies if people give up metaphor can seem a bit over the top and maybe leans into the whole emo angst thing, but it's actually perfect when you consider what Miku is. Miku only exists as long as people are creating. Miku inspires creators, those creators inspire others, and the cycle continues. Her survival literally does depend on people holding onto their creative spark, and I think the film showed that in a really good way. When a critic brushes off the film's themes such as emo angst, I think it just shows a lack of understanding of the core of what a lot of Vocaloid is about, giving voice to people and to their struggles that often go unheard. It also describes the whole overcoming your struggles and stuff as like ultra pious self-empowerment and aspiration. And again, I'm genuinely not sure what this is supposed to get at. Like, is it too cute? Is it too nice? Is it too full of joy? Like, I like the message of the film. I thought it was very cute and a nice way of showing how Vocaloid music and, well, music in general, these are human singers, can help people overcome their struggles and bring a little bit of joy into their lives. Like I think I mentioned earlier, it's not over the top, it's literally just little things like someone sending their friend a video, the friend watching it and going, that was nice, thanks, that cheered me up, and then continuing to draw. It doesn't like change these people's lives, it doesn't like rewrite the entire world and make everyone super happy. Might seem a little bit over the top if that wasn't genuinely a lot of people's experience. Like if you go on Reddit and look at why do you guys like Miku, half of the replies will be like normal stuff or like fairly like typical stuff where it's like, I like her colours, I like the music, and the other half will be like, Miku saved my life, I was in the worst part ever, and then I saw her shining light. And again, like I've said earlier, it wasn't anything over the top, it wasn't anything extreme, it's just like a guy watching a video that his friend just sent them and going, that was nice, that's made me feel better, I'm gonna continue drawing. Another nitpick is that it says that characters make such heroic extortions as, we should probably put more work into our socials than we usually do. And I think this is getting at the fact that like the stakes of the film feel like too high for the characters to just be so nonchalant or for it to just be fixed by like a music festival. But again, like it's a metaphor. for like Miku dying is a metaphor for people giving up on their creative ambitions, of course this will be fixed by people continuing their creative ambitions, you know? Like, this is a film about the power of music. Miku is a music instrument. I don't know what other heroic actions they're supposed to do other than to put on a performance. One thing I do agree with the article was on how the animation was excellent. It says that Hata is particularly gifted at using light to lift scenes with an Alcyon glow. It also says that this cinematic gig is as dynamic and even more psychedelic than professional concert films. I was also pretty impressed with the animation, and it kept getting better as the film went on. Like, I didn't have super high expectations because a lot of it is very much a slice of life kind of thing, but the second and third act both stepped up the quality massively. The concert scenes are obviously the highlight, the dancing is amazingly smooth, and the camera work feels so dynamic. I'm glad they put a lot of budget into those scenes, so it didn't really feel too far-fetched that this would be able to resurrect the non-singing Miku. I really like the animation in the Windows Sekai, especially with the, like, black evil gunk thing that comes to eliminate all the Mikus and the broken zeros and ones. That was extremely well done, and I did in fact feel the mild threat that gave the film its PG rating. Plus, those things still managed to fit into the 2D anime style without feeling disconnected from the rest of the world, a problem that plagues a lot of anime adaptations. Now we're onto the closing line of the review, which, if anything, is just like really confusing for me. It says, but this garbled, chronically online film is clearly targeted at the TikTok generation, and might just be the future of filmmaking after all? Like, I'm not entirely sure exactly what this line means. I won't deny that the film is kinda garbled, but the idea of it being chronically online confuses me. It feels like such a misuse of generic buzzwords that the author has no idea what they actually mean. I suppose it could refer to the characters meeting Miku in a virtual world, but like, that makes complete sense in the context of the film. Like, if anything, this film could be even more online. Vocaloid is a music software, Project Sekai is an app, and Miku is basically an internet mascot. Of course a film would lean into digital and virtual spaces. Plus, chronically online, as I understand it, tends to be used to refer to someone who's like brain dead from scrolling like 18 hours a day and could only speak in like internet brain rot and references. And to be honest, there weren't even many internet references in the film at all. The only references it really did were to Vocaloid songs and producers. I don't know, I feel like it just kind of emphasizes a disinterest in the film and the premise in the first place. It kind of feels a little bit like those kids and their gosh darn phones. It also calls the audience a TikTok generation, and like, okay, yeah, this is an app that came out a few years ago, coinciding pretty close with when TikTok like sort of blew up. Plus, the demographic is definitely not only for those people. It very much feels like a sweet family film that anyone who does like this app or Vocaloid can enjoy. Although I will say, like, it does feel slightly more targeted towards that demographic, it doesn't really try to exclude anyone. I feel like anyone who is a Vocaloid fan or a Project Sekai fan can enjoy this film. And finally, the thing that really irritated me when reading it for the first time is the notion that it is the future of filmmaking. Where did anything else in the article refer to this at all? It comes completely out of left field and makes no sense in the context of what we've been told. It's nothing revolutionary either. There's been franchise anime films like these for decades. It's hardly the film of the future. It feels like just a really lazy ending that kind of just underscores the fact that this reviewer didn't really think that hard or do that much research or try to understand exactly what this film was about. And that pretty much wraps up my thoughts about that review, but definitely not my thoughts about the film. That Guardian piece was only a couple hundred words, and I have a few more things I like to talk about. Firstly, nowhere in the review was the music mentioned, which is ridiculous for a movie all about the power of music. Like, I'd listened to a few songs from the soundtrack when it first came out, and they all sounded pretty nice, but nothing that stood out to me in any particular way. Like, I wasn't coming back to this music much. My favourite Vocaloid stuff tends to lean a bit heavier over the rock elements, whereas the film focuses more on J-pop. But hearing these songs in the context of the film, completely different experience. It doesn't feel surprising at all that these songs were able to revive Miku. Also, my favourites were Story for Leonid and Fun for Momo Jump. My one disappointment with the music is I kind of wish we'd got to hear more of the other Vocaloids singing than Miku. Like, I was hoping we got to see them all singing together in the main film, or the non-singing Miku with the other Krypton 6 in her Windows Sekai, but alas. It was very much the Miku show, which sort of makes sense because it is the Miku movie. Like, I'm not getting anything that wasn't advertised, but still, a group number would have been really appreciated from me. Plus, I did have a bit of a giggle when the black group just didn't care about the rest of the Vocaloids. Like, we know Miku is the main one and the only one that Krypton Future Media really cares about, but you can show it in a slightly more subtle way. Like, it's very on the nose for it to just pass by the other Vocaloids and have them not be affected. I think the lack of focus on other Vocaloids was one of the things that irritated me, but I can acknowledge that this is because I am a Vocaloid fan rather than a Project Sekai fan, and it was Colourful Stage the movie, and also about Miku Who Can't Sing, and not the Vocaloid movie. I will say I do agree with some of the pacing issues, and I wish it had gone a bit more into each character's struggles rather than making it a cute slice of life thing, but I feel like that's definitely a personal preference. Like, I can acknowledge that from my perspective, I'm not going to enjoy this as much as someone who enjoys consuming like fluffy sort of stuff. But I like it when the characters are suffering a bit more. It builds character. Plus, I think it was the best angle to take without making the movie feel way too overstuffed, and also making sure that no one character takes too much screen time. It felt quite nicely balanced in terms of characters. I didn't really feel like anyone was like left out in any way, and they all got to show their own personalities a bit. In general though, I wasn't a fan of the way we had to cut back and forth between the groups all the time, making little progress with the overall story as they each have to individually come to their own conclusions. But then again, I've seen how other people enjoy getting to see how each group reaches their own goal, like how they all decide to write a song for Miku, and I suppose it eliminates the risk of favoritism and like showing one group far more than the others. I think a lot of the pacing issues are just a symptom of the project, and I honestly don't know how I would have gone about fixing it, apart from maybe putting a little bit of an explanation in at the start. You have 26 characters that all need screen time, and it is a bit of a nightmare. And I think the pacing sort of got better as it went on, it picked up steam, and I just kind of became familiar with the way the film was going about things. Also, I want to talk about the film personally as a Vocaloid fan. Now, I am very easy to emotionally manipulate when it comes to Vocaloid. I have a very strong attachment to these characters. Maybe too strong, and they mean it represents so much to me. Like, that bit in Spoken For where Utao Tattoo burst through Sympathy Tattoo's voice left an impact in my brain. Vocaloid feels like the ultimate creative project, and it's helped me in so many ways in my life, inspiring me artistically and helping me work through my own identity and struggles. It's also led to me making a lot of really cool friends who I see they're kind of inclusive. Like, it's a really lovely community to be part of. I think this side of Vocaloid was shown so well in the film. The community, the creativity, the comfort, it just came through. Even in small ways, like when I'm stuck on art, I sometimes will put on a Miku video, get cheered up, and maybe end up drawing her instead, which is why my poor OCs haven't seen the light of day in quite a while. I don't know, it was quite easy to see myself through these characters, even if it can come across as a tad melodramatic to people who are unfamiliar with what Vocaloid can mean. I got quite genuinely upset when Miku did die, and I was grinning the whole way through her final song. Like, it is slightly embarrassing, but I did have to stop myself from like properly crying. As I said, easily emotionally manipulated. Yes, it's cheesy and predictable, and nothing 1,000 family movies haven't done before. I was reminded a little bit of My Little Pony, especially that one music one, but this isn't My Little Pony, this is Miku, and it resonated with my own experiences with her, which made it special to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed the film because of that. It's a solid watch. I feel like, honestly, I would have to give it like a 5 out of 10 from a more objective, how good of a film it is standpoint. It has a lot of pacing issues, and it really didn't develop its characters much. But as a fan, and in terms of how much I enjoyed it, easy 10 out of 10 film. Best cinema going experience of my life, apart from the two girls who are talking behind me, my friend, every so often. So yeah, I think that covers about everything. Like and subscribe for more Vocaloid content, and come on your own thoughts on the movie and this article. This was unscripted, I just kind of went off the top of my head for a lot of this, so sorry if it's a bit jumbled and I've made the same arguments multiple times. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!